Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing RENFIELD. This was directed by Chris McKay. McKay does have more of a background in animation, which I suppose makes sense here because this movie has a rather bloated, cartoonish, very self-aware type of energy to it. Very stagey, very campy, full of all kinds of like artificial looking colors. Honestly, it reminded me of like neon clubs of the 90s. Quite frankly, it reminded me of like Batman and Robin, the Turkish bath club sequence or something like that. Maybe a bit of a random reference, but I don't know, it felt very fitting to me. This movie, though, overall is just very meh. It's meh. That's how I felt about it. It's got some cool concepts. It has a very quirky twist on an original concept, which can be fun in theory. And it is interesting when you can reframe an old story with all kinds of new concepts. And I think here, it has an intriguing idea at the core of it. It could have been really fun. It could have been really exciting and full of pep, but it wasn't. And this film just feels like almost any movie at the multiplex does these days. Just your average movie that you could see on any Friday night. They all feel the same to me. This movie, it just, it feels like it's slipping right through your fingers. It lacks tension. It lacks the confidence in its fundamental concepts, enough for them to really sink in and mean something. But no, they never materialize into anything other than just very like quirky hipsterisms and such. And the problem with our movies today is that they have taken this postmodern idea of holding a mirror up to the cinema, which I think is the initial concept there. But now it's like we're holding up a mirror to a mirror and another mirror. So we're just looking at reflection upon reflection upon reflection. And we've lost kind of our sense of self, it feels like, or our sense of what cinema is. We've lost real bite and risk and reward and emotion. And thus, as a result, all of these movies just feel like pilot episodes for network television. And it's just it's very sad to me. And yes, that's how I feel about this film. It is not a bad film necessarily. It's very forgettable. And I think it could have been something that really touched a nerve. I like the idea of taking Dracula and Renfield and bringing him into the modern day, having Renfield as this like really sad guy who's just wanting his autonomy back, and bringing in the toxic professional relationship angle and therapy. I don't know. It could have been very funny. Even with Nicolas Cage as Dracula, in theory, it's like, it's the perfect selling point, I think. But I do take issue a little bit with the resurgence of Nicolas Cage in terms of, this act of his career that we're currently in, where a lot of his eccentricities are more taking center stage. And it feels more like the film's self-awareness is built more around the gimmick of Nicolas Cage's acting. And I do think that ultimately that's a misuse of him. Sometimes it's amazing, like in Mandy, fantastic use of his persona while also being quite self-aware of it. But I think overall, he works best when he is slightly out of step with everything else in the movie. I think too much awareness, again, creates a little bit too much padding, where we know that no matter what, if you fall, there's always going to be a safety net. I will say, I think that Nicolas Cage in this film is by far the best thing about the movie. I mean, it's just leaps and bounds. And I have talked about this before, but I actually have a lot of respect for Nick Cage, just because, and I mean this more as a professional actor, just because I think he is very interested in a type of acting that a lot of people aren't interested in, and it's more the acting of the past. Today, I think more the minimalist, more naturalistic type of acting doesn't allow for that type of performance, and yet he just goes for it and doesn't seem to really care what other people think. He finds a way of bringing it forward in a very unique way, and he's talked about it. He's talked about his passion for like silent movies and, movies in the 1930s. There's a specific type of energy and theatrical quality to it, a campiness. And I think I like actors who don't see it or don't take it too literally. And I think with Cage, he believes in the looseness of the cinematic form. And I think more than a lot of people do. His imagination goes much further. And in this movie, he fully gets the humor. I think he gets this humor way more than the writers do. He certainly gets it more than the art department, more than the director, more than the other actors do. He is funny as hell here, and it's like he's taking all of these different, Dracula interpretations and spinning them into one performance. We have shades of Bela Lugosi, we have shades of Christopher Lee and Nosferatu, all this stuff. It's unfortunate in some ways because he's doing such a great job that it makes the rest of the movie look very half-baked by comparison. The movie doesn't deserve him by a long shot. It's not clever enough or cheeky enough or fun enough to play within its own parameters it has set for itself. And what I find kind of interesting about it is, again, that gothic tale that is mixed with, modern sensibilities of like self-help and personal therapy, self-love, inner wellness, all that kind of stuff. But then there's another angle to it where it's juxtaposed with all of this very specific type of cartoony violence. And just looking at the effects here, I'm thinking that the violence here could not have been easy to execute behind the scenes. They put a lot of effort into that. And yeah, it just kind of confused me so far as why it needs to be here. And I'm not saying I have a problem with violence. I really don't care. It's just more how the violence relates to modern versus archaic in a way that ties the themes together harmoniously. That's more what I take issue with. It feels more desperate than anything else. Like it's trying to create this like wild, abandoned feeling, like it's edgy and all of this type of stuff. It's trying to hit the boldness points by checking them off a list, but it's not working towards any of them. It feels very much like a second-rate Zombieland, which, you know, Zombieland is not a brilliant movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoyed that movie. I think it had a really kind of fun energy to it. It just has a lot more going for it. At least it has tension and likable characters. It's funny, it has stakes, and the narrative, you know, it takes you somewhere. Renfield just has a lot of misplaced jokes, and they're not even really funny jokes. There's no setup, no build, no release. It's all just kind of dependent on buzzwords and kind of polite euphemisms, and it's not coming from any organic cleverness. I don't think the movie understands its own humor or its own source material enough to be able to make something special of it. And I think more than anything, the movie just kind of needed to make its emotions more clear. I think it really needed to spend most of its time with Renfield as the protagonist and really allowing us to get into his head. That's how you're going to give this movie legs. And also, it really needed to explore way more the relationship between him and Dracula. And Nicholas Hoult here plays Renfield, and he's an actor that I kind of feel bad for him in certain ways, just because I sense he is a really fantastic actor. And, you know, he's great at these types of performances. Very much the British high-strung, anxious stereotype. It's kind of reminiscent of like a Hugh Grant, but without the same kind of irreverence in the humor. But he's just always casting these roles, and again, I understand why, because he's just so good at them, but I think it's really limiting his career because we're just seeing this pattern. And I would just really like to see him given a role where he really gets to do something interesting, he really gets a chance to grow. And with this movie, unfortunately, he doesn't get that chance. He stays in this compartment. We just need a lot more jostling of these elements in order for them to be interesting in any sort of way. There is a romantic subplot here that is between Holt's character and Awkwafina, and I actually found it to be, you know, kind of endearing, and I found her to be quite likable. She has a very brash energy that is different from other people in the film, and yet I think that she took up way too much of the focus. Again, we need to focus more on Dracula and Renfield and their relationship. But yeah, you know, movies today, they just, on average, they feel like treatments at best. It's like they sold the treatment, and from there, they didn't do anything beyond that. They did not try to flesh out a script or anything like that, especially when you're already clearly exploiting an original concept. And it seems to be more for like money gain rather than, you know, for, you know, actual passion for the material. It's best to at least disguise that on a basic level. And again, who's the one person in this entire cast, in this entire crew, it seems, that actually seems passionate about the source material? It is Nicolas Cage. Everything else is just kind of hip and cool in there for the sake of being trendy, as if it is paving the way towards some sort of edgy style they think that they have somehow created. But I don't know, it couldn't be further from the truth, in my opinion. Really early on, I was thinking about Zombieland and thinking about how that movie, you know, I don't think people expected that film to be as solid as it was, and it did become kind of a sleeper hit. But now it seems like we are too cognizant of those beats that you have to hit, those formulas that take you to certain points in order to get that success, rather than just being very simple and just writing a good story, a compelling story, one that you would want to see. It is really just baffling to me. It has less to do with the movie and more just a feeling I have with movies overall these days. But it's like I can go into the theater, see a movie, walk out of the theater, sit in my car, and the moment I sit in my car, I've completely forgotten what I just saw. And that happens to me all the time. And yet they want you to pay $15, $20 for these films, even though they're, you know, half the quality compared to what they once were. Twice the price? Hell no. So yeah, sorry, I can't get behind this. I do not recommend this kind of movie. Watch something that is actually cinematic, something that is unusual, where you can really see that there was passion behind it. But this, yeah, if anything, maybe stream it, rent it, but it's not worth a full price. Unless maybe you are a die-hard Nicolas Cage fan and you just have to see a movie with him, then okay, I guess you'll enjoy him. But everything else is just pretty lackluster, as I said. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.